Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla, what has happened to the market in general. I'll give you my thoughts moving forward and yeah, all that good stuff. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, guys, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, updates, etc., well, again, I do have a YouTube membership, guys, where I constantly share all my thoughts, posts, updates, including the bottom and the top in SPY today. You can see SPY daily 6 hours ago in the morning as we were dropping over here, saying how, the breakdown from the pennant I warned about this morning on the week open is playing out. We are approaching the first destination here down around 655 region, though. Market is getting quite extended now from the 9 EMA, so I expect the market to slow down the bleeding here soon, personally. And then, of course, we had that bounce. And then, of course, you can see if I go over here to this post, SPY daily, this is 3 hours later, right into that sort of pennant where I mentioned that, hey, this is the spot now we're most likely going to start finding rejection. And guess what we found, guys? A bounce right there and a rejection right there. What more could you ask for $3 a month? I don't know. But hey, if you're interested, definitely check it out. Again, the link is down below in the description of the video. Just click this bad boy right here. And then check it out, right? Again, for just $3 a month, you can access all those updates, right? SPY, Tesla, QQQ, VIX, things like that, different time frame analysis, options flow. $5 includes NVDA, $7 includes the whole package, private Discord access. We have chart reviews every Sunday. We have a chat room and all my tier 3 posts as well. But jumping into Tesla, right? Tesla closing the day down almost 2% on the day, closing just above $400 per share. So, what does this mean moving forward, right? Is Tesla still bearish? Is it going to continue lower? Is it going to actually maybe bounce from here? Maybe it's going to have a bullish, kind of a bear trap into a bullish reversal higher. What's the game plan here? Well, again, the overall picture for Tesla hasn't been it's not too unchanged from what I've been saying for honestly even the past several days now, ultimately, right? Because again, for the most part, like I said, the exponential moving averages are starting to get that bearish crossover. The 9 exponential moving average is pretty much on the verge of, tomorrow morning, unless we get like a god candle in the morning, it's going to most likely be at this point opening up below that 50 exponential moving average, which is kind of that first step towards that kind of, stronger bearishness sort of crossover, kind of bearishness momentum slowly taking shape and slowly taking root. That's the first step. Obviously, the second step, well, technically the first step was this crossover here. This is the next step. And the second step is, well, the 21 also makes its way down below. Because you have to remember, what does this actually mean? Like, okay, it's crossing down below, but, what does that actually mean? Like, okay, why is it crossing below? Or, why is that potentially bearish? Or at the very least, more concerning for the bulls, right? Like, what does that actually mean? The logic simply behind that, at least as far as I'm aware, is simply because, think about it this way. If Tesla had this massive drop, but then recovered, right? These wouldn't have time to cross down below. The fact that we had that massive drop and the fact that these exponential moving averages, again, these kind of, crossovers, bearish crossovers kind of one by one, slowly but surely, obviously implies that the fact that not only did this drop obviously happen, number one, which is already a concern, but more importantly, arguably, is the fact that the bulls aren't stepping in and aren't really showing that bullish pressure, especially fast enough to regain momentum sooner than later. You know what I mean, right? Because again, think about it, right? We dropped down below. If this was still bullish, if the bulls were still in full control, we would get back above these levels pretty quick, ultimately, and regain the momentum and continue upwards, ultimately, right? But the fact that we're not able to do that, the fact that we're now getting rejected at this area that was an obvious area of support, the fact that all these things are happening and, the bulls are having problems essentially getting it up, if you will, gives time for these EMAs to cross bearish, which then obviously starts to and give those stronger implications that maybe the bulls don't have that strength that is required. You know what I mean? Hopefully that makes sense. That's kind of what that sort of entails, if that makes sense. So just a quick little explanation, at least from my personal knowledge. Again, I've been doing this for a little bit now. I didn't look up the definition behind what it actually means, but that's kind of my, perception of it, right? From, experience, of course. So take it as you will. But nonetheless, the point is the fact that we're still having issues, right? We're still having issues around these general vicinities, the sort of 14s-ish range up to about $420 per share, which is where now the 9 EMA is sitting, which is where the 50 EMA is sitting, now sloping downwards. That's going to be a major area of resistance. If the bulls even, if we want to even have a conversation about bullish momentum returning, heading higher, heading back to, let's say, the 430s, which now seems like a dream, doesn't it? Or, maybe even retesting all-time highs. To me, that conversation isn't even worth having until at the very least I see candles kind of like this, right? Until I see bullish momentum get back above the 14s to about 420, close and hold above that. And now we start seeing wicks below, not above like this, but wicks below with candles up here. You know what I mean? Again, pretty much exactly like we saw here, right? I want to see these kind of candles again, above the 14s to about 420. If we can start seeing that again, especially sooner than later, maybe off of NVDA earnings tomorrow, maybe NVIDIA saves the market tomorrow. We don't know yet, right? Big day tomorrow. But that's when we can start having those conversations again, especially if it happens sooner than later. But if that does not happen, if we continue having issues, especially here in the 14s-ish range, if we continue having problems getting back above the EMAs and the EMAs continue flipping bearish, that slowly but surely keeps building that kind of bearish pressure, or at the very least, easing and slowing down any bullish pressure. So that's kind of the way I personally see it right now overall. So let's continue monitoring that. Let's continue monitoring. Let's see what actually develops from this. We could arguably be setting up, a bit of a looking kind of messy so far. It's still in development, but, a bit of a bear flag potentially setting up here as well. So it's not looking great for the bulls, to be completely honest with you. Below the 14s, again, above the 14s, we can have a conversation. Then at that point, we need to start breaking above other key levels. For instance, right, the main one to break above for bulls to really get, what the hell is this thing? To get back above this trend line will be that next step, right? So if we can get it back above the 14s, turn it back into support, then of course we need to break this trend line, and that's when we really start getting bullish, right? That's where I really start flipping back to bull mode. As of right now, I am in bear mode. I've been bear mode for like the past week and a half or something like that. I've been saying it for quite some time. We had that Wyckoff distribution. Now we're breaking down below, getting a retest of a clear area of support in the past, now resistance. And, again, to me, the thing that, would really start to trigger the sell-off down even further to these levels down here, a break below this trend line, 390 roughly, right? Give or take. Yeah, losing 390 would be that trigger, in my opinion, roughly. And that's where this, kind of selling can really increase pretty aggressively. And that's when I think we come back down and retest this very large area that was a very large resistance. Now, of course, support. Again, same way that this was a major area of support, now resistance. Same idea here. Major area of resistance, right? As high as 370, we'll say, to as low as 350 roughly, 345, 350. Major area of resistance. Now, supports, right? I would expect Tesla, if we get any bleeding to the down here, I would expect that to be support until proven otherwise, of course. So that's still my overall thesis, guys. That's still the way I look at it. That's still that simple. But, losing this trend line does increase that the bearishness, I guess you can say. It would absolutely increase that bearishness. Above this, bullishness becomes, becoming more prevalent once again. But again, I continue, as I've been for the last week and a half to 2 weeks, I continue leaning bearish until proven otherwise, especially with that Wyckoff distribution, which, in this case should play out over the next few days, maybe up to a week or something like that. Whether or not we break tomorrow, this trend line below 390, or it takes another few days, maybe it takes up to another week. I don't know. I don't like timing things. I don't like to try and tell you when it's going to happen because I don't know when it's going to happen. But I do feel confident that that is the more likely outcome until the bulls can prove me otherwise, essentially. So let's continue monitoring it step by step, guys. Overall, the weekly, still kind of looking pretty not amazing. You can see the weekly constant pressure right around here, constant support on the weekly. Now you can see broke down below. Now the weekly is showing constant selling pressure here. So that needs to change, guys. That needs to simply change if the bulls really, really want to make a, really want to make a stand for themselves, I guess, if that makes sense. So let's continue monitoring that step by step. The 1 hour time frame, we had this bear flag I talked about the other day. Obviously, we ended up getting that nice little bear flag bounce right into those Fibonacci's I mentioned. And then, of course, we rejected so far, broke out of it. And you can see the second we broke out of it, look at all these wicks, guys. Look at all these wicks, right? Constant wicks, just constant rejection. Any attempt to move back into closer to the 14s, let alone get into the 14s, for the most part today, has been just constantly getting rejected over and over and over. And the bulls just can't seem to really regain that momentum. There's clearly a bit of a trend shift developing here, especially if it continues. So again, like I said, the bulls, again, if they're still awake, I need to see them coming in sooner than later, or else this sort of bearish pressure will continue to build up. And the more it builds up and the less pressure the bulls start to put onto the stock, the higher the chance the bears will continue slowly. Think of it like a tug of war, the bulls had a huge advantage, right? Huge advantage. They were tugging aggressively here, winning the tug of war. But now that, red line is starting to slip into the bearish territory, right? There's still more room for the bears to really bring into their territory, such as breaking below this trend line. But it's definitely starting to shift towards and slowly into that bearish territory until proven otherwise, until the bulls show that strength and yank it back onto their side. And again, to me, to even consider that, again, above 14s to 420 minimum, at the bare minimum. Then we can start having conversations about further upside. But again, you have to remember, earnings tomorrow for NVIDIA. SPY, let's talk about SPY quickly, right? I told my members how, as we approach this kind of major support area down here, you can see we had, several bounces from in the past, about 655, give or take, of course. That's going to be where I expect the bleeding to stop. On top of that, the market is pretty extended to the downside. It still is, to be fair, right? We have the 9 exponential moving average and the 21 EMA sitting at about 671 and 673 respectively. So if the market, even down here at pretty much, 660, it's pretty extended, guys. The market is still pretty extended to the downside. So I'd be pretty surprised if we see too much more further downward pressure, like right away. I would expect maybe a bit of a breather, potentially some sideways action, even it's just, just really across the board, at the very least for tomorrow, as we await NVIDIA earnings. And then of course, let's see what happens. But, the market is a little bit extended to the downside. And this is kind of that game plan I let my members know this morning where, we had that breakdown below this pennant, right? This kind of pennant that we were kind of zigzagging in, that we could have, continued zigzagging in, but we obviously, gapped down below and turned this area that was a very blatant area of support into resistance right around here. You can see that was, red flag number 1, which I told my members about also as the market opened up. And now we're, visibly turning it into resistance, and we're getting a rejection, especially on that retest that we had this morning, which I show my members right here. Check it out. Look at this beautiful retest right into that. And we got a clear rejection off of it as well, right? That's not good. That's definitely not a good sign. The 50 EMA, that was always a massive area of support for the stock market. Anytime we got anywhere even remotely close to it, is now acting as a resistance with the bearish 21/9 EMA crossover as well. So it really comes down to NVIDIA earnings tomorrow to see what the next overall move is. NVIDIA, maybe you can save the market. Maybe you can't. I don't know. But as it stands right now, this is more now entering the territory of the bulls need to really start to prove themselves to regain that momentum and honestly regain the trust that the trend is still bullish, at least for the short to medium term. Overall, obviously the market long term is very bullish. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be a bear that's like, oh, everything's crashing. It's a 2008 all over again. No, I'm not saying that by any means. But in terms of the short to medium term momentum, yeah, the bulls need to prove themselves, guys. And one of the ways to prove themselves is, at the very least, getting back above about 666, 667, give or take. If we can get it back above that on SPY, that would be a very strong first step to regaining that bullish momentum once again in the markets. Below which, problems continue brewing, I guess you can say. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Options on Tesla, very mixed throughout the day. Definitely a bit more bullish and bearish. And the last sort of, we'll say hour or two of the day, some nice flow coming in, but it's extremely mixed. It's so mixed that I don't even know what to expect out of this, because it's just, I see a lot of short-term puts and calls. I don't think anyone knows what's going on in terms of the options flow, which is why, again, I usually just rely on the technicals and the charts and the price action. And that usually tells me the story. And the story continues telling me the fact that the bears are slowly but surely gaining control once again. And the bulls, well, I should say, they need to start coming in sooner than later. All in all, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace.